All right, welcome back. My name is Michael Dean, of course, Podcast Juice. Today, I wanted to share a little bit of the Arsenio Hall memoir. Actually, it's called Arsenio, a Memoir. It is obviously a book about Arsenio Hall, TV show host. Of course, he had the late night show. I'm not going to go all into the history of Arsenio, but to say that the Arsenio Hall show was the shit. It was a late night show, like a Johnny Carson, probably for more contemporary times. Conan O'Brien. What's the late night show? I don't even watch the one. What was the one with the Roots? Again, I don't even watch these shows anymore. David Letterman, Jay Leno. But Arsenio was the first, if I'm not mistaken, at least the prime time in my generation, first black late night show, syndicated across the country. And you just had to be there. I mean, that was the place you could go to see, all the hip hop stuff, R&B, all the black acts would get on there. And it really changed the face of late night TV. And salute to Arsenio. With all of that said, I like saying that. With that said, he just came out with a memoir. And of course, if you know, Prince and Arsenio obviously had a great relationship. Classic TV moments with Arsenio and Prince, one being the MTV Music Awards when Prince did get off. He had the ass out. Arsenio was the host of that show. And then shortly after that, I don't know if it was a couple weeks or whatever, but Prince goes on the Arsenio Hall show and does a legendary performance. This was just before the release of the Diamonds and Pearls album. And then he goes back on there again a couple other times, and Arsenio gives Prince the whole hour. In the book, which I would recommend that you go get, it is narrated, the audiobook is narrated by Arsenio, and he's performing on there. I've been listening to it for the past week, and I feel like I know Arsenio just by listening to it because it's him just talking about and describing, all the things that have been going on. He really takes you behind the scenes, and it's interesting to hear because I was such a fan of the show, but then there was a point when you kind of stopped watching, and I kind of forgot why, and some of the behind the scenes drama that we weren't aware of. But he does a whole section talking about Prince. This is why we're here today. And I'm not going to play all of that because I want you to go get his book and listen to it. But I did want to play this story here. He's going to talk about going into the studio with Prince and then taking Prince to an after hours spot up in the hood. And I've heard Arsenio mention this story before on something else, but here he goes into a greater detail, and I think it's a fascinating look into Prince from another celebrity's point of view, but in an environment where you just wouldn't think to see Prince in. I just think it's so cool. So let's just check it out and react to this.
Another time, I visit him in a recording studio. I walk in and see that he's draped colorful silk scarves over the lamps and a wall sconce in the studio, giving the room a sexy, moody, mellow, personal Prince ambiance.
Okay.
The vibe you get is like the polar opposite of late night with Snoop in the studio. With Prince, it's quiet as a church at midnight. Nobody else around except me and the engineer. No entourage, and absolutely no smoke.
Hilarious.
Not even Nog Champa.
Hilarious.
You dare not light up a blunt in the presence of Prince Rogers Nelson. I settle in and watch him work.
Which I just want to stop it there. It's funny because, and I think the song I'm going to mention, or the time I'm mentioning, may be after this. But when you listen to records like "The Exodus Has Begun," there's extensive sort of characterizations of people smoking weed, and you hear Prince doing these things. It's just funny. Anyway, here we go.
Work. Prince tinkering with new songs, experimenting with new sounds. I close my eyes and listen. Just listen, realizing this is beyond amazing.
Mm.
Me, Prince, hearing the music for the first time. I'm in awe and I feel privileged. Around 1 in the morning, Prince says, LA shuts down so early. Not much happening after 1 or 2, is there? Oh, oh, there's something happening. You just have to know how to find it.
Right.
Like what? Any place with music? I want to hear what people on the West Coast are listening to and dancing to.
Mm.
Well, we could always go to an after hours joint, P. An after hours joint? Yeah, they have them down the way. Rashawn Khan told me and Richard once about a place in the hood, an illegal club in a home way south of Wilshire Boulevard.
Mm.
Tell me about it, Prince says. It's where people go to dance after they finish working, like strippers and pimps, night folks. Prince goes silent, nods as he considers this. I'm sure he's about to say, please, you must be out your damn mind. But instead, he says, I want to go to one of the after-hour joints. After the show Friday night, I go home and take a nap. At 2 a.m., my driver and I pick up Prince in my new custom-built stretch limo. My driver opens the door, the new car smell eases out, and Prince, snacking on a lollipop, settles into the cabin.
Okay.
He wears a white suit and matching boots, all made in the same fabric. He carries a clear acrylic cane, which he places across the seat.
Play.
After hours joint, he says. Yeah, we going to Miss Mary's, I say. We drive through the mid-Wilshire district.
Now, just for a second, if somebody tell you we going to Miss Mary's or something, you already know. This ain't going to be some, club establishment, regular. This going to be some hometown. This at somebody's crib. I love it already. I love it.
Down La Brea Avenue, heading south, passing the Parisian Room, where I opened not too many years ago for Joe Williams.
Okay.
We pull up in front of a nondescript house surrounded by a high chain link fence guarded by 2 growling, barking pit bulls. Wow. A man in a suit appears at the fence. He gestures, and the pit bulls back down and sit at attention. The suit opens the gate, and Prince and I follow the guard towards the rear door of the house. He leads us inside. We enter a living room illuminated by floor lamps with red and blue bulbs. We keep walking into a dining room with a bar. Several people, mostly women, congregate in the corners or sit on a plush red sofa. I notice only 1 or 2 guys. Music plays through a sound system. The women in the corners sway. 1 or 2 dance alone. A couple dance together. So here's how it works, I say to Prince. You put some money on the bar over there. I'm taking care of it. You tell the woman behind the bar what you want. Okay, Prince says. So what do you want? Nothing. I don't drink liquor. Well, you want some water? Not here, he says.
Hilarious.
We take our seats. I place a large bill on the bar. I say my drink order, and 30 seconds later, the beverage appears in a paper cup. Prince straddles his bar stool, leaning on his cane for balance, for protection, for security. He scans the room, taking everything in. I try to sense what he feels. Shock, discomfort, but mostly fascination. He studies the surroundings clinically, like a scientist. I sip my drink. Yo, I can't believe you let me bring you here, P. I can't be relevant if I don't roll with you down here. I'm looking for what these girls dance to at 3 in the morning.
Just want to pause it right there. And Prince said, I can't be relevant if I don't know what people are dancing to. I got to be out in the culture to see what's popping right here on the West Coast. As I was listening to this, I started thinking, man, I wonder if this kind of plays in, and I don't know, I'm just speculating. I wonder if this plays into the idea of like 3121 house party type joints. You know what I'm saying? Like he came and saw how Miss Mary's spot was popping, and then boom, and then a couple years later, he's doing parties on the West Coast, but could just be a coincidence. Let's continue.
What moves them? What makes them put down their drink and get up and dance? The music goes from something slow to something funky. A woman sitting on the couch springs to her feet, claps her hand, and says, "Oh, that's my song." She starts dancing by herself in the middle of the room.
Mm.
Prince watches her intently. He says nothing until the song ends, and she sits back down. Did you see that? What was it in the first bar of that song that made her get up and have to dance?
Mm.
We stay at Miss Mary's for 2 hours. We never move from our seats at the bar. I sip my drink, keeping an eye on Prince, respecting and protecting his boundaries. He sits with erect posture, nearly motionless for the whole 2 hours, leaning on his acrylic cane between his legs, his eyes on the strippers filtered through the red and blue lights, watching how they move, how they grind, how they dance. Occasionally, a woman edges toward him and whispers, "Hi, Prince," and lightly brushes his forearm, or his shoulder, or his back. Drunk or high, or simply disoriented by the surprise guest, they seem to want to know that he's real, that they're not dreaming, that he's not a vision in the smoke.
Mm.
For those hours, his fascination with the women never lessens, and their interest in him, their awe in him, never fades. We leave close to dawn, heading from the dining room, through the living room, and out of the back door, past the guard, the suspicious pit bulls, into the back seat of my limo, where Prince, energized by his research trip into the field, launches into another vision of the future, again imagining Napster or Spotify, the end of albums, the reconfiguration of the music business as it currently exists, seeing the end of the music world as we know it. I stay close with Prince through the end of my show, through the years afterward.
I just want to stop it right there before we get into the next thing he's going to talk about in regards to Prince. But it's interesting to see, this sort of interaction with Prince, where, of course, at this point, Arsenio Hall is the man. He's, at the top of the chain. Of course, Prince is an established, legendary superstar at this point. And, for Arsenio to be like, "Yo, man, let me show you how we get down over here on the west side." You know what I'm saying? As a matter of fact, let me take you on the block. Let me take you to one of the real spots so you can be with the people. And, the seeing that Prince is very much receptive to that. And, the way he framed it, almost like he was doing research. Like, I can't be relevant if I'm not out here and seeing what's working. There was a point, and I would argue, like controversy 1999 era Prince, where Prince was at the top of the culture food chain. Like, he was dictating, the style, and people wanted to dress like him. This is before Purple Rain. I'm talking like when it was just black folks. And, this is when the whole new breed thing is really popping off. That movement is popping. So, this is the thing that, births L.A. Reid, Babyface, Melvin Riley, all of them cats that when Minneapolis Funk blew up, when the time in 1999 and all that, and they defined the culture in terms of, people started dressing in that Prince style, then yeah, he was at the top of what was relevant and, dictating what that was. But by this point, in the 90s, I'm assuming this was in the early 90s, he's an established superstar, and there's other things that have happened and R&B and pop and different things that, hip hop, that dictate what was hitting that time. So for him to be able to say, yo, I need to get what's popping on the West Side, let me see, and really what are the sisters reacting to and what's moving them, because that's the thing that, in my opinion, and I would think that Prince, that's what really is dictating his moves. If you go back to them early time I just talked about, he was doing things to get the sisters' attention. Like they was the ones who was tapped in to what Prince was doing, and why he was able to be successful was them black women who was the fans early on, you know. And so to circle back around and let me, I still got to see what's going on out here. I'm on the West Coast, take me to the spot, Arsenio. So I just think this fascinating, the fact that he just stood in there and really just peeped game. And, it's interesting to see the interactions of the people, how they reacted to him. It wasn't like trying to rush him and all this, but it was like, oh, that's what's happening, Prince? The ladies is going to be up on him. But it was just dope to see the respect and the love that people always have. Even so, he can go into whatever environment and be straight. He didn't mention Prince's security team or detail. I'd assume they were with them as well. But I just feel like he came into a place where it's like, oh, yeah, okay, Prince, you good here. Yeah, you good. Don't even worry about it. But we out here gigging. You know what I'm saying? So I thought that was dope, man. Shout out to Arsenio for sharing that in the better detail. Also, I want to play this next part. And this is, I was kind of shocked when I heard this part. And this is Arsenio talking about the death of Prince and how he feels about that. So I want to play that.
Till his death, 25 years after he sang Let's Go Crazy and Kiss on Stage 29, the first week of September, 1991. His death shocks me. I can't get my head around it. Can't grasp the reality of it. Prince overdosed on fentanyl? Or painkillers laced with fentanyl, found dead in an elevator. Alone? Impossible. I never saw him drink or smoke or take a single drug. I always respected his boundaries. I never did drugs around him, never even ate an edible. I had no idea he had gotten hooked on drugs. The shock of finding that out, of not knowing anything about his drug addiction, obliterates me. I wonder if I really knew him. But I did. We knew each other. I think of the first time on the show, spending the entire hour with Patty, then later, his subsequent appearances, remembering the smoldering piano, receiving his joke gift, the backless suit with no ass in it.
He's referencing things I'm not playing.
Our 2 a.m. excursion to Miss Mary's down the way, private listening parties in LA clubs in the middle of the night. Every laugh we shared, every astonishing moment. His death shattered me. His death broke my heart. I lost my brother. Chapter 27.
All right. Yeah, just wanted to play that little piece, man. Yeah, go get the Arsenio book. I'm almost finished with it. And again, you hear how he is narrating it, performing it, and he does the voices and stuff, man. I'm at the part right now where he's talking about the Farrakhan episode and how all that happened. Fascinating stuff. Yeah, it's a good book, but it was the chef's kiss, I guess, to hear him, speak about Prince in this way and really spend his time going into there's some. I mean, he talks about he's had relationships with everybody, so it's fascinating to hear it from his angle. And that's all I wanted to say. Of course, man, we miss Prince, but we're gonna keep it going. But with all of that, work it like a job. See you next time. Peace.